Top 10 World War Weapons that changed the world forever. 1. T-34 tank, the game-changer on the Eastern Front. When the German army invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, they expected to overwhelm poorly equipped forces. What they didn't expect was to face the T-34, a tank so advanced for its time that even German generals admitted it shocked them. Fast, well-armored, and equipped with sloped armor that caused enemy shells to glance off, the T-34 turned out to be the workhorse of the Soviet military. Its combination of speed and firepower allowed the Red Army to blunt the German blitzkrieg and eventually push westward. By the end of the war, more than 57,000 of these tanks had rolled out of Soviet factories, making it the most produced tank of the war. Without the T-34, the Eastern Front could have looked very different. 2. Aircraft carriers, the floating air bases. At the start of the war, battleships were considered kings of the seas. By the time it ended, aircraft carriers had dethroned them entirely. Carriers transformed naval warfare by bringing air power to the oceans, turning battleships into floating targets rather than decisive weapons. The Japanese demonstrated the devastating power of carriers during the Pearl Harbor attack in 1941, where planes launched from carriers inflicted catastrophic damage. Ironically, the American carriers themselves weren't in port that day, allowing them to survive and later dominate the Pacific War. From Midway to the Philippine Sea, aircraft carriers proved that the future of sea power would be decided in the skies. 3. The Higgins boat, the vessel that won Normandy. On June 6, 1944, thousands of Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy. Their success hinged on a small, unglamorous boat, the Higgins boat. This wooden landing craft, with a ramp that dropped forward, allowed troops and vehicles to disembark directly onto beaches. It wasn't glamorous, but it made the impossible possible. By removing the need for established ports, these boats gave the Allies the ability to land anywhere. Over 23,000 Higgins boats were built, and General Dwight D. Eisenhower himself once called its designer, Andrew Higgins, the man who won the war for us. 4. P-51 Mustang, the long arm of the bomber force. Early in the war, American bombers sent into German airspace without fighter escorts were massacred. The Luftwaffe ruled the skies until the P-51 Mustang arrived. With its exceptional range and performance, the Mustang could escort bombers deep into Germany and back again. Suddenly, American bombing raids had a shield. The Mustang's speed and agility made it a formidable opponent, and it devastated enemy fighters. Some estimates credit the P-51 with as many as 19 enemy kills for every Mustang lost. This single aircraft turned daylight bombing into a viable and devastating strategy for the Allies. 5. U-boats, the silent hunters of the Atlantic. While Germany lacked the surface fleet to challenge Allied naval supremacy, its U-boat fleet nearly starved Britain into submission. These submarines prowled the Atlantic, sinking millions of tons of Allied shipping and forcing Britain to live on the edge of survival during the early years of the war. In 1940 alone, U-boats sank over 2.6 million tons of shipping. Winston Churchill later admitted that U-boats were the only thing that truly scared him. Even as Allied technology eventually overcame the U-boat menace, the sheer resources required to do so, more than $26 billion spent on anti-submarine measures, proved just how influential these submarines were. 6. M4 Sherman tank, quantity over quality. The Sherman tank was not the best tank on the battlefield. It was often outclassed by German Tigers and Panthers, and crews grimly nicknamed it the Ronson, after a cigarette lighter known for igniting every time. Yet, despite its shortcomings, the Sherman was a triumph of mass production and reliability. Thousands rolled off assembly lines, and unlike the heavy German tanks, Shermans were easy to maintain and could be produced in overwhelming numbers. The Allies used them in every theater, and special variants like the British Firefly, with its powerful 17-pound gun, made even German crews nervous. In the end, the Sherman's strength was in its numbers. It flooded the battlefield, tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. 7. Katyusha rocket launcher, Stalin's organ. Known to German soldiers as Stalin's organ, because of the howling sound they made when firing, Katyusha rocket launchers struck terror wherever they appeared. Mounted on the backs of trucks, they could unleash a devastating wall of rockets in a matter of seconds. While not very accurate, they didn't need to be. Their job was saturation, blanketing enemy positions with explosive chaos. Cheap, simple to make, and easy to move, Katyushas were exactly the kind of weapon the Soviet Union needed as they relocated industries eastward and fought for survival in 1941. 8. Hawker Hurricane, Britain's stubborn defender. During the Battle of Britain in 1940, the Spitfire got most of the headlines for its sleek design and advanced performance. However, it was the Hawker Hurricane that did the lion's share of the work. Rugged and more numerous than Spitfires, Hurricanes accounted for 55% of German planes shot down during the battle. While less advanced, this fabric-covered fighter proved reliable, and its pilots showed that Britain would not fold even as Europe burned. After the battle, the Hurricane evolved into a ground attack aircraft, proving its value again as a tank buster. 9. The 88mm gun, Germany's multipurpose killer. Originally designed as an anti-aircraft gun, Germany's 88mm gun became one of the most feared weapons of the war. Capable of shredding tanks at over 1,000 yards, blasting bombers out of the sky, or acting as general artillery, the 88 was as versatile as it was deadly. Later versions of the weapon were mounted on heavy German tanks, such as the King Tiger, making them even more lethal. The Allies feared the distinctive crack of an 88 just as much as they feared the tanks it armed. 10. Avro Lancaster Bomber, Britain's heavy hitter. When the Lancaster bomber entered service in 1942, it gave Britain the means to strike back at the heart of Nazi Germany. Carrying enormous payloads and able to reach targets deep inside enemy territory, the Lancaster became the backbone of the RAF's strategic bombing campaigns. These bombers also carried out some of the war's most famous missions. It was Lancasters that delivered Barnes-Wallace's bouncing bombs during the Dambuster raids, crippling German dams. Later, they sunk the battleship Tirpitz. More than 7,000 were built, but nearly half were lost to enemy fire, a testament to just how dangerous these missions were.